It's a little breezy out here, so I apologize if you get a little wind noise. But I just want to give you a quick little look at my generator out here. And it's a gasoline generator, and it's 3,200 watts, continuous, 4,000 maximum. It does have a 220 plug on it as well. The gasoline just kind of represents, it does use regular fuel, and but that is a limited resource, especially for if you're whether a short-term disaster or whatever ends up going longer than you have gasoline for. That could be a real issue. Also, just to represent the power of that generator, next to it I have a little heater next to it. I pull this out once a month, fire it up to make sure it runs, and then I let it run for about 10 minutes with that heater attached. Just to kind of represent how much energy you can actually get out of something like this. That little heater there takes 1,500 watts. It'll take sustained 3,200 watts. Okay, but I didn't really buy it for that little heater. I bought it for other things, like it will run my refrigerator, it will run my stove and my oven. Obviously, it will do electronics, small electronics, things like that. So that's why I bought that. Obviously, it's capable of doing some other things in addition to that. But I do carry about 30 gallons of gasoline at all times. I do keep some preservative in the gasoline at all times. And every 4 months or so, I take the gasoline in those jugs there that you see, and I actually have a number of others in the garage. And when my car gets low on gas, I'll be filling my car up and burning it up that way, then putting new gas in there with more preservative, so that I can get, at least another 6 months out of it. And I've not had any problem with that system. It seems to, that little engine there seems to run just fine on gasoline that's 6 months old that has preservative in it. So, granted, your mileage may vary, so to speak, depending on the time of year. I know they do change the I'm going to use the term recipe, for lack of the correct term, on the gasoline for a winter blend versus a summer blend, as well as that varies by where you live. But this is part of my prepper series that I'm doing in regards to winter emergency heat, and the role that this can, as well as the role it cannot play in that. So let's move on to the next piece. Mentioned, I do have a backup emergency generator, but can only store so much gas, and gas stations won't be selling gas if they have no power for the pumps. So what are my other options? There is wood, but I have no wood burning fireplace or stove and cannot alter the home I live in. So for me, wood is out, unfortunately. Then there's kerosene. Some people do use this option, but since it's stored as a liquid, thus it can easily be spilled, I wanted something with a greater degree of fire safety. There are kerosene heater fires in my area every year from people that didn't follow the manufacturer's instructions, or from a simple accident in the use of liquid energy. I think of it as a safer but still dangerous version of using gasoline for heat. Does it work? Sure, but at what possible cost? Then there is propane, which is stored as a pressurized pressurized liquid, and when exposed to the atmosphere, automatically turns into a gas, and has a distinct smell in case you have a leak, as well as it cannot be spilled on the floor, unlike kerosene. With any non-electric heat source, you must verify that it is designed for indoor use, or you can end up dead. Yes, dead, as many of them do not efficiently burn the gas, and as a result generate an ongoing lethal dose of carbon monoxide. So you must have one made for indoor use and some way to vent fresh air in. I would also like to add, you should have a carbon monoxide detector in addition to anything that comes with the unit you buy, just because of the potential danger that could exist if for some reason your sensor does not work. You have a backup that's online all the time. In my area, there are far more locations to refill propane or buy additional tanks for propane than kerosene. So propane is it for me. Now let's have a look at the heater I chose and how I set it up. Research on my own, as well as talking to some people online, I discovered the Mr. Heater line of indoor rated heaters. You may also need to make a mental note here that most propane heaters are not rated for indoor use, so be sure to compare apples to apples when looking to buy one. The Mr. Heater line has two built-in safeties, a low oxygen sensor and a tip-over sensor, both of which can turn off the heater if tripped. There are three variations of the Mr. Heater product line, and I'll discuss each with the BTU output as well as the general retail cost. By the way, BTUs are just a unit of measure for heat known as British thermal units. The first heater, or the baby bear if you want to look at it that way, is the portable buddy heater with a retail cost of $89 and an output of 4,000 to 9,000 BTUs. That's also the one that I have. The second one, also the mama bear, is the Hunter Buddy with a retail cost of $130 and an output of 6,000 to 12,000 BTUs. But this also has a silent operational switch so it doesn't alert game that you might be hunting when you're changing settings. Third one, or the Papa Bear, is the original Big Buddy with a retail cost of $150 an output of 4,000 to 18,000 BTUs. Of course, these prices that I'm giving, especially this time of year, I'm sure if you're patient and look around, you can find them for less. I'm just giving you some of the retail numbers. Also, all models have the ability to run off an individual 1-pound propane canister or off of a 20 or more pound propane gas tank. Yes, the same tank that most gas grills use. You do need to buy a special hose to do this, but will be able to run for much longer. An example, the small portable buddy heater, the one that I use, can run on low for 6 hours off of a single 1-pound bottle, off high for approximately 3 hours. On a 20-pound tank, the type for a gas grill, it can run for 48 hours on high to 110 hours on low, depending obviously on settings. Propane itself has no shelf life as long as you store it properly and don't have a leak. The Hunter version as well as the original Buddy heater create more heat and thus use more propane, so a pound of gas will not last nearly as long as in my example. I suggest that you test your model to see what your usage really is so you can plan accordingly. So the length of preparedness you're looking at will determine on how many pounds of propane stored in canister or tanks you want for this coming winter. Lastly, I want to restate that you should not solely depend on any heater's oxygen safety while you sleep. So you should get a new carbon monoxide detector with new batteries. I have one that's within 4 feet of me as well as about 4 feet of the actual heater. Winter is coming, so be prepared for it. It should never be a surprise. It's always right in the video, but I wanted to show off a little bit more of a show and tell. When I was talking about the 1-pound propane containers, I'm talking about something like this. So if you see this sort of thing in the local stores, this is what I'm talking about. And on the outside it does say that it's 16.4 ounces, which is 1.02 pounds. So this is the 1-pound container I'm talking about. And they simply screw right up into the side of the Mr. Heater. This is my unit here. I've used several bottles already in testing this to see how long the bottles last, so I can do the mathematics involved to figure out how much of this I actually need for the needs that I might anticipate staying here if I have no heat. Also, you see, this is the hose that I referenced when I was talking about that you will need to purchase in order to use one of these tanks. And again, you may already have a tank or maybe a couple of tanks if you barbecue outside and like to use natural gas to do it. Now, one thing I did do is I simply put little sandwich baggies on the end of these hoses to keep spiders and things from crawling inside here, making little cobwebs to screw it up. I also put on the rubber seal right here, I used a little, with a Q-tip, a little vegetable oil, and put that right on the tip here, because if I end up not using this hose, one of the things that makes seals like this have an early life and break sooner than they should is they have a tendency to crack, or sometimes what's called dry rot. So keeping this lubricated with something that's not going to damage the seal is to your advantage and have a longer life. So if I need it, I simply need to pop these off, take the little baggies off, plug the tank right into the side here, where the 1-pounders go, and I'm good to go. And yes, I did already take the hose, plug it in here to make sure everything is running good. So again, just wanted to have a quick little show and tell with you as far as I've been testing it with these bottles, and then I've already kind of transferred over, and I have a couple of these tanks here. Again, but that's based off of my need, not your need. So you need to do the math to figure out what works best for you. So thank you, and be prepared.